These are the faces of some of the U.S. coronavirus victims. The number of people who have died in the United States after contracting the novel coronavirus continues to climb. We're learning who some of them were, what they did and what they were passionate about. Those lost to the coronavirus include a former New York fire marshal who sprang into action on 9/11, a mother to 6 who was battling breast cancer, and 4 members of a New Jersey family. Here are some of their stories. A priest in Brooklyn. The Rev. Jorge Ortiz-Garay, a Catholic priest in Brooklyn, died on March 27 at Wyckoff Hospital Medical Center in the New York borough from complications related to coronavirus. The 49-year-old is believed to be the first Catholic priest in the United States to die due to COVID-19, the Brooklyn Diocese said. "This is a sad day and a tremendous loss for the Diocese of Brooklyn," said Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio of the Diocese of Brooklyn. Father Jorge was a great priest, beloved by the Mexican people and a tireless worker for all of the faithful in Brooklyn and Queens. Born in Mexico City, he was ordained as a priest in 2004 and arrived in Brooklyn in 2009. He was the pastor of St. Bridget's Church in Wyckoff Heights and was the coordinator of the diocese's ministry to Mexican immigrants. Known as Father Jorge, he also coordinated Brooklyn Diocese's Our Lady of Guadalupe feast day traditions, including a mass attended by thousands of pilgrims, followed by a torch-lit pilgrimage through the streets of Brooklyn and Queens. He walked nearly block of New York. William Helmreich, a prominent sociologist perhaps best known for walking every block of New York, died the morning of March 28 of coronavirus. He was 74. A professor at City College of New York, Helmreich wrote nearly 20 books, including The New York Nobody Knows. Walking 6,000 miles in the city, which chronicled his walks through New York talking to and learning about its residents. After he tested positive for coronavirus, Helmreich's symptoms appeared to be improving when he died suddenly Saturday. "We weren't ready for this at all. We didn't say goodbye. We didn't think we had to say goodbye," said his son, Jeffrey Helmreich. His family held a virtual funeral with few guests. They were not able to sit Shiva or mourn together at home, as is Jewish tradition. Helmreich's widow and one of his sons attended, standing 6 feet apart. A humble and pioneering neurosurgeon, Dr. James T. Goodrich, the pioneering neurosurgeon who allowed CNN Inside a remarkable operation to separate conjoined twins Jaden and Danias McDonald, died March 30 of complications related to COVID-19, according to the hospital where he worked. The Albert Einstein College of Medicine and Montefiore Medical Center released a statement calling Goodrich a pioneer in the field of helping children with complex neurological conditions, having developed a multi-stage approach for separating craniophagus twins, such as the McDonald twins. But the hospital also said Goodrich was a humble, caring man who did not crave the limelight and was beloved by his colleagues and staff. At the holidays, he baked cookies and hand-delivered them to nurses. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, CNN's chief medical correspondent, met Goodrich when Gupta was a neurosurgery resident. He wrote a tribute in which he remembered Goodrich as a preeminent pediatric brain surgeon who dropped out of college at one point to become a surfer dude. Dr. Goodrich was an incredible human being, and the world is a little less bright today without him, Gupta wrote. While we knew the losses would come, they are no less painful when they do. He saved families from the Holocaust. Rabbi Avraham HaKohen, Romy Cohen, survived the Holocaust and saved dozens of families from the genocide. He died of complications from coronavirus at age 91, his family said March 26. A native of Pressburg, Czechoslovakia, now Slovakia, Cohen was a 16-year-old member of the underground resistance when he helped save 56 families from the Holocaust, according to Yeshiva World News, and a biography of the rabbi posted on New York Representative Max Rose's congressional website in January. His mother and 4 siblings died in a concentration camp. Cohen left Europe in 1950, first living in Canada, but he later settled in New York, becoming a developer on Staten Island, where he ran a company that built 3,500 homes, according to the bio and his relatives. Cohen was trained in the ritual of circumcision, a mohel, and performed thousands of circumcisions for which he refused payment, the bio said. He was considered an authority on the subject. He died at 91. There was no ego, no aura of greatness with him. "He made you feel like $1 million," said Mendy Marachnik, president of the Council of Jewish Organizations of Staten Island. A New York City nurse. Caius Jordan Kelly was a beloved member of the nursing staff at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City, the hospital said. Kelly was an assistant nurse manager at the hospital, according to his sister, Mary Sharon. Kelly, who also suffered from asthma, tested positive for the virus on March 18 and died less than a week later, she said. The coronavirus crisis has turned our frontline professionals into true American heroes, Mount Sinai said in a statement Tuesday. Today, we lost another hero, a compassionate colleague, friend and selfless caregiver. His legacy is so powerful, he was amazing, Sharon told CNN. Anyone that knew him, his smile, everything about him, spoke for itself. I found out he was sick and in the ICU at the same time, Sharon said. He told me that he's okay and not to tell our parents. Kelly texted his sister, saying he couldn't talk because he wasn't able to breathe. I love you, going back to sleep, Kelly texted. It was the last text message his sister received from him. I want to honor him today and I want to fight for his unit and staff and all healthcare workers, Sharon said. I want our healthcare workers to have what they need. A Detroit policeman, Captain Jonathan Parnell, was the leader of the homicide unit in the Detroit Police Department. Parnell was a true leader who never complained, said Detroit Police Chief James Craig, who announced Parnell's death on March 25. He just wanted to make sure his men and women would put forth their very best, Craig said. Parnell was so well liked that at one point in his career his teammates begged for him to remain in their department despite a promotion, Craig said. His previous assignments were in the commercial auto theft section, narcotics, the special response team, and the 10th precinct. Jonathan was an extraordinary officer, a leader who contributed more to this department and the community than I could ever say, Craig said. He cherished his family and the department members he worked alongside, and we all loved him back. A high school principal, Des Ann Romaine, walked into the Brooklyn Democracy Academy each day committed to uplifting her students. The 36-year-old educator in New York City died from coronavirus complications, the city's principals union said March 23. She led a transfer school for students who were challenged by traditional high schools. Too many in our society have written off the young scholars under her stewardship, but where others saw problems, she saw promise and potential, Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams said in a statement to CNN. Romaine worked with Adams' office to create a first-of-its-kind urban farming program at the high school, where students grew fresh produce for people in need. A World War II veteran, George Passes, a World War II veteran who was proud of his country, his church and his family, died on March 17 in Long Island, his daughter says. After serving in the military, Passes, 93, returned home to eventually start a family and become an electrician. He had been running an electrical contracting business with his son before his death. But, most importantly, he was loved by many people. He was everyone's papu, it's Greek for grandfather. Everyone said he was like a father or grandfather to them, his daughter Denise Bakikio told CNN. After Passes contracted the virus, his health quickly declined, and he was hospitalized. He died without family being present as they said they were not allowed on the hospital's floor, and some of them were battling the virus. A community leader, Detroit community leader Marlo Studemeyer, 43, died March 24 after contracting the virus, his former employer, Henry Ford Health System, told CNN. An amazing man, husband, friend and one of the best ads that I have ever met lost his life to COVID-19 today, Bob Riney, the president of healthcare operations and chief operating officer for Henry Ford Health System, said. Studemeyer would light up any room with his ideas and strategic thinking, Riney said in a statement. He was tireless in his love and care for others. My wife and I are heartbroken for this devastating loss. We will continue the fight of this terrible pandemic in his honor, a release from Henry Ford Health System says. Studemeyer, a member of Omega Psi Phi, is survived by his wife, Valencia, and 2 young children, the release says. A Tony Award-winning playwright Terrence McNally, an acclaimed playwright, died from coronavirus complications, his publicist Matt Polk said. McNally, 81, was a 4-time Tony Award winner known for his musicals Ragtime, Kiss of the Spider-Woman, and numerous other musicals, plays as well as film and television screenplays. He died March 24 at a hospital in Sarasota, Florida. He was a lung cancer survivor with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, Polk said. Last year, McNally received a Tony Award for Lifetime Achievement in Theater. Over his career, McNally was responsible for 25 Broadway productions, including Anastasia, The Ritz, and The Full Monty. A retired New York Fire Marshal John Knox, 84, was a retired fire marshal for the Fire Department of New York, but he served his country and his city in myriad other ways. He was a member of the New York Police Department for 2 years and served in the U.S. Marine Corps during the Korean War. And yet, after a career of service, Knox had more to give. He had been retired for 2 years on September 11, 2001, but he sprang into action that day to help his country and his community. He took his vehicle and all the gear that he still had remaining from his time with the FDNY and drove down to the Battery and made the trek from there all the way to Ground Zero, his son, Zachary Knox, told CNN's Anderson Cooper on March 18. And he was there for several weeks afterward. Knox was still going to the gym a few weeks before his mid-March death. He was a very vibrant 84-year-old, his son said. I think people decades younger than him had trouble keeping up. Zachary wants his father to be remembered as someone who was always very committed to being just a man full of integrity. He lived and died by his word, Zachary said. That's the way he always was, and people loved him for it. Knox is survived by his wife, 4 children and 6 grandchildren. A brother of Minnesota Lieutenant Governor Ron Goldin, a tough-as-nails Marine who was a big teddy bear on the inside, died after being diagnosed with the virus, according to his sister Minnesota Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. Almost exactly 2 months after we buried our dad, my brother Ron passed away on Saturday, March 21. To many, he'll be a statistic. Tennessee's second COVID-related death. But to me, I'll remember a loving older brother, uncle, father, and husband, Flanagan said in an Instagram post. Just weeks before he was diagnosed with coronavirus, Golden was diagnosed with cancer, which compromised his immune system. He was put into a medically induced coma and placed on a ventilator before he died of the virus, Flanagan said. This is why we must stay home, she said. If you feel fine, that's great. But please consider the possibility that you're carrying the virus and don't know it, and then you walk past the next Ron, my big brother, in public. U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota, a former presidential candidate, said on Twitter, her heart goes out to my good friend Minnesota Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan and her family. The virus is affecting so many Americans, and together we must work on getting the medical supplies and treatments to those who are sick. Klobuchar's husband has tested positive for the virus. A juvenile in California, a minor who lived in Lancaster, California, may be the first juvenile to have died from the novel coronavirus in the U.S. Los Angeles County health officials announced the death on March 24, but have said the case was complex and there might be an alternate explanation for the death. Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti told CNN the person who died was a teenager. A 91-year-old who lived a life of intellectual fascination when Bill Pike, 91, was admitted to the hospital a few weeks before he died. His family thought he had pneumonia, his son Daniel Pike told CNN. A week after he was admitted, the Connecticut man was sedated and on a ventilator. Nobody thought he had this, Daniel Pike said. Shortly before he died on March 18, Bill Pike received his last rites over the phone, with his wife and 3 children listening in from quarantine. It was like a tapestry or quilt of our affections for him, his wife, Kathy Pike, told CNN. Born in Fort Collins, Colorado, Bill Pike was accepted into the U.S. Naval Academy and served in the Korean War. After returning home, he attended Harvard Business School and went on to have a 30-year career at J.P. Morgan & Company, where he served as chairman of credit policy. Pike was an old-school gentleman with incredible character, said the Rev. Peter Walsh of St. Mark's Episcopal Church in New Canaan, Connecticut, where the Pikes were members. He treated everyone the same, Walsh said, from the person who painted his house to the Connecticut governor, with whom he was friendly. We see joy in his 91 full years, Kathy Pike said. 4 members of one family, one New Jersey family, is mourning the loss of not one, but 4 beloved family members, all of them lost to the coronavirus within a week. It's absolutely surreal, Elizabeth Fusco told CNN's Chris Cuomo. They were the roots of our lives. It's like the second we start to grieve about one, the phone rings, and there's another person gone, taken from us forever. Among the family members lost was Elizabeth's oldest sister, Rita Fusco Jackson. She died on March 13, according to the New York Times. Days later, on March 18, Elizabeth's brother Carmine Fusco died, just hours before their mother and the family matriarch, 73-year-old Grace Fusco, died too. And another brother, Vincent Fusco Jr., passed away on March 19. Elizabeth was on the phone Wednesday for her mother's final moments. While on a call with the hospital, she heard her mother coding in the background. She said, And doctors' frantic attempts to save her. I listened to those doctors and those machines code my mother on the phone when she passed, Elizabeth said. I'll never get over that. Grace Vusko had 11 children and 27 grandchildren. This is a family that always cared and was there for others, according to a GoFundMe page set up for the family. 3 other relatives are hospitalized in New Jersey, and 19 other family members have been tested and are waiting on the results, according to Roseanne Paradiso Federa, Grace's cousin and an attorney representing the family. Children, parents and grandchildren have been quarantined. This is an unbearable tragedy for the family, Paradiso Federa said. A single mother and breast cancer survivor Sunday Rutter, a 42-year-old mother of 6, died on March 16 in Everett, Washington, after she was infected with coronavirus, her older sister Shauna Olson told CNN. My sister was amazing, Olson said. She was the first to lend a helping hand to anyone. Rutter had been battling breast cancer and was in remission when she fell ill, Olson said. She was taken to Providence Hospital in Everett, where she died. Her room was closed to visitors to prevent spread of the virus. Her 6 children, ages 13 to 24, said their last words to her using a walkie-talkie that was placed at her bedside. She fought valiantly until she could not fight anymore, a GoFundMe page set up on behalf of the family says. Olson called her baby sister a hero who always put her children, ages 13 to 24, first. Rutter had been a single mother since the death of her husband in 2012, Olson said. Per his mother's wishes, Rutter's oldest son, Tyree, will become the legal guardian of his younger siblings, Olson told CNN. A retired New York Times reporter and editor Alan Finder, a longtime reporter and editor at the New York Times, died March 24, the newspaper's executive editor Dean Backett said. Finder, 72, had retired but started working last month on the Times international desk, filling in for a few days, a spokesperson for the newspaper said. Alan Finder, a longtime and beloved colleague at the New York Times, died this morning after testing positive for COVID-19 a few weeks ago, Backett said in a statement. He was one of Metro's stars in the 1980s and 1990s, a big writer in a big hugely competitive era for New York City news, Backett added. Alan was also a generous and patient colleague. He touched many of our lives at the Times and will be missed. An NBC News staffer Larry Edgeworth, an NBC employee, died of complications due to the coronavirus, NBC News chairman Andrew Lack told staff in a memo on March 20. Edgeworth recently worked in the equipment room, Lack said, but before that, he spent most of his 25 years at NBC News as an audio technician. Many of you were fortunate enough to work with Larry over the years, Lack said, so you know that he was the guy you wanted by your side no matter where you were. That sentiment was echoed by Roxanne Garcia, CNN's senior director of newsgathering, who worked with Edgeworth for 17 years at NBC. He was a really big man with a really big heart, Garcia said, adding, he had a great laugh and a great smile. Edgeworth spent countless months covering stories far from home, in Iraq, Afghanistan and elsewhere, Garcia said. He always made you feel like there was someone there who cared about you, she said, and there was someone who cared about the story we were telling. Edgeworth leaves behind a wife and 2 sons, Lack's memo said. A former magician Richard Curran, a father of 2, died March 17, just a few days after falling ill. He had been living at an assisted living facility in Florida with his wife of more than 5 decades. Richard was ebullient. He was loving, his wife, Sheila Curran, told CNN affiliate WPLG. What do you say in a moment like that? He was perfect. Their son, Eric Curran, told CNN that the couple met in Chicago. They raised their family there before retiring to Florida about a decade ago. Shortly before Eric was born, Curran decided he wanted to be a professional magician. Sheila was his assistant. Curran would later work in sales. He was also passionate about water sports and competitive swimming. His family said he was hospitalized with respiratory issues considered routine, but he died this week. Doctors told the family his death was due to complications from coronavirus. I think the family is in shock because he always pulled through, the Curran's daughter, Tracy Curran, told WPLG. As a magician, Curran loved sharing magic tricks with children. No matter how many joint replacement surgeries he endured, he still couldn't resist a chance to get down on the carpet to play with a toddler, his son wrote on Facebook. Correction. This story has been updated with the correct spelling of Eric Curran's name. Curran's father's work history has also been corrected. CNN's Myrna Alsharaf, Jason Hanna, Madeline Holcomb, Faith Karimi, Amanda Lee, Pierre Milhin, Paul P. Murphy, Frank Pallotta, Rebecca Reese, Ray Sanchez, Christina Skeglia, Evan Simcoe Bednarski, Holly Silverman, Jade Tim Garcia and Douglas Wood contributed to this report. Click subscribe to receive the latest news.